Hey, welcoming you Gooshbagz to the end of the year edition of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast. I am your host, Jason Peck, and this is going to be a great one, not only because it is the last one of the year, and I'm sure you guys are sick of me talking to you guys all year.
Saving the
But
best for last, baby.
I've also got Neil Mediratta on with me. How are you, Neil?
Doing all right. This year my fantasy team did not do as well as expected.
No,
Like
not
every
so
year in
hot.
this league, it seems. But, we had a strong second half of the season. Our final 2 weeks were some of our best work,
Yeah,
even though that only led us to a fifth place finish. But
there you go.
that's neither here nor there.
Well, it was a good season overall, I'd say. And we're going to jump right in here and talk about the results of the championship, the biggest game of the year for the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League.
Now, is this the biggest game of the year just because a certain someone won it?
I don't know, but speaking of which, I think it looks pretty dull around here, doesn't it? Hang on.
Shit.
Give me 1 second.
Fuck, why did I agree to this? I already know that he's going to be bringing in. Oh shit, he's got the shirt. I'm gonna wait for the trophy and the ring to show up at some point during this episode because I know right now he can't hear me. Yep, there's the ring. Yep, can't really see it. Good for us. And there's a big ass trophy. Good for him, I guess.
I think that's a little bit better.
Looks a little small.
Can you see the trophy in the back here?
Move a little bit to your right.
Am I right? I'll move this a little bit too.
No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to be in front of it.
Ah, I see. You guys check
shit.
out this trophy. Oh, yeah. The Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League. And look at that. The scary
Shit. We gotta. Is it gonna be
Oh.
engraved every year?
Hell yeah, it is.
That's actually really cool. We
Oh,
are
yeah.
legit now.
Did you see this shirt? Fantasy Champ.
Yeah,
There you go.
I was actually giving
Oh, yeah.
some play-by-play while you were putting all that on and getting
There
all
you
your
go.
stupid winter stuff out.
Got my ring on. I also have a glass of scotch. Aaron
Of course
Rodgers
you-
drink of choice. Here we go. Did you hear his speaking of which, did you hear his post game
Yeah,
interview
with Aaron
on the field?
Andrews, he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna be an old man and drink some
I'm gonna have
scotch at home."
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like some people I know.
Oh yes, mostly Ryle because I can't stand the stuff. Because I just took a sip and it's basically a mixture between a wood fire, a campfire, and dirt. That's what that drink tastes like. So
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously, I can't drink that stuff,
Right.
but the way you guys describe it sometimes, I don't know how you can deal with it. But
I can deal with a little bit of smoke in a drink, and I do enjoy the taste of smoke, but this is very peaty, I think is the term, which literally is literal shit, I think. So
yeah.
Um, so, but anyways, the Scary Terrors were able to take down Zerline. I never hit you. You're tearing me apart. 133.96 points to 130.66 points. It was a close one, but the Scary Terriers were able to ride to victory on the magic of Ryan Fitzpatrick and
Magic, baby.
Fitzmagic and 2 punt return touchdowns by Nyheim Hines, which Colts D, my second choice of the week. But
Can I swear on this?
yes.
All right. So what the fuck? Like, how?
So
They had what, 29 points?
29 fantasy points. Yeah, it was fantastic. Let me pull up
ridiculous.
this matchup here. It was great. And originally, when people were looking at it, they had 41 fantasy points. And people were
The
looking.
whole year before that?
No. During that week, they had 41
yeah,
fantasy
okay.
points. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody was looking at it and they're like, what the fuck? Like 41 fantasy points for a defense. I was like, guys, it's a mistake. They counted the touchdowns twice. But fortunately they still had 29. So that week, I was going to pick up Denver's defense and I put in a bid for them and I was outbid by Benaya and I was like, Fuck.
Oh
He's gonna kill
wow.
me with Denver's defense. So I grabbed.
That turned the whole thing around.
I know. I had to settle for the Colts defense, and they got me 29 fantasy points. So that was fantastic. But he had some massive games. He had Kenyon Drake, who was a monster in the postseason. Kenyon Drake put up a fight. He had 31.9 fantasy points. Julio Jones had 21.6 fantasy points. He did amazing. And Devontae Parker, pickup of the year, man. He did fantastic as well. But they couldn't quite overcome the 10 points from Russell Wilson. So that was
Yep,
unfortunate.
that was a big difference.
It
So I'm
was.
just looking at Kenyon Drake's playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
So ours was week 15 and 16,
15,
correct?
16, yeah.
Yeah, week 15 he had 39.1 points, and week
Yeah.
16 31.9 points.
He had
Another.
70.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Right?
70 fantasy points in 2 weeks. It's insane. It was
I mean,
crazy.
I mean, I don't. I can't really recall anything off the top of my head where like the two most important weeks of the year
Mm.
is that big of a result from someone that really wasn't talked about going into the season.
No, well, do you know what the problem was? The problem was Adam
David
Gase.
Johnson.
No,
David, okay.
no, yeah, Adam Gase, who was the head coach in Miami last year and the year before, and guess who he had under his regime, who has broken out since then? Devontae Parker, Kenyon Drake, Ryan Tannehill. All three of those guys have had massive years this year, and Adam Gase is no longer their head coach. Do you think that's a coincidence?
It kind of does make you think maybe Adam Gase is really thought of as like an offensive guru.
Yeah.
But after those like three, they're like I don't want to call Tannehill a star, but they're being so successful.
Really well. Yeah.
I mean, he's a glorified game manager in my opinion, but I mean, he's doing what he has to get done to win. Now he's in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, in the actual playoffs, he has not been that great. He's been under 100 passing yards both games, but that's not necessarily his fault.
It's a product of the game plan and Derrick Henry just being a freaking beast.
Yeah. When he did throw, ever since I don't know when he started, but like the second half of the season, he was very efficient and he put up like multiple touchdowns on few pass attempts. He was like 20 pass attempts or under. And so he's been fantastic for what he's had the opportunity to do. So
yeah, and I mean, you're handing the ball off like 30 points a game. Every time you look like you're going to hand it off, the defense is thinking you're handing it off.
Right. Yeah.
Do you see that one play? I forgot which game it was, but one team just completely bid on a fake. Was it the 49ers game?
I don't know if I saw that. It might have been the 49ers. I missed the 49ers game.
I actually did kind of miss it too, but I heard about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you would know.
No, I'm sorry. That was the one game I missed.
Yeah.
But that was, I mean, and fortunately on my side of the ball here, Ryan Fitzpatrick was a fantastic playoff fantasy quarterback this year. He did wonders.
You had him for the whole playoffs?
No. I had him for a while, and then I did. Wait, hang on. Yeah, December 4th. So I had him for the whole playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah. So I picked him up because I knew he had. Who did he have? He had Philadelphia, who was awful against the pass. New York Jets.
He got 27 points there.
Yeah. New York Jets.
He got 14 points.
Yeah, he only got 14. So I did not start him against the Giants because he had an awful game against the Jets, and I wasn't sure about his talents. And he scored 20 points against the Giants. And then I played him against
Cincinnati.
Not amazing,
but, it's serviceable.
Right.
And then Cincinnati, he just blew the fuck up.
He did.
31.66 points.
That's right. So it was basically him and Indianapolis's defense that kind of won it for me. Tell you what, no, you know what? We're going to get into it later in the show. I'll wait on this, but Mike Boone did not come through for me. And Chris Carson got hurt in the game, in the championship game. So I only got 9 total points from my running backs, and it was awful. Well, 10 points.
10.3, but who's counting?
Yeah, 10 points, but it was bad. In other news, the third place player, Chad Keene, was the top scorer this week, or not this week, but the final week, and he had 143.86 fantasy points, and that was on the back of a huge Saquon Barkley game and a huge Aaron Jones game. He had a total of he had almost 70 points. He had 69 points from his running backs in the last week. So he had a fantastic game. I paid out his $10.
Yeah, he's probably kicking himself that he didn't make it into the championship game.
I know he had a rough week 15, and that really didn't propel him to the finals. But all right, so since this is the final show, it's kind of like a rewards show. And we're doing this, like, I threw out a bunch of names for these different categories. But we can talk about the different players and pick who we thought was the actual best, for that category. So the first category this week is the most valuable player. Now, there were a few things you could take into account here, and part of it has to do with like where they were drafted. And like that's why I don't think Christian McCaffrey necessarily runs away with this one, because you can kind of go with like where they were drafted and kind of take in their value, like where you got them at.
Yeah,
so,
a combination of the few things.
Yeah, so I mean, like, but still, like Christian McCaffrey is not going to run away with this because item number one is Lamar Jackson, and I drafted him in the 13th round this year, and I was dumb enough to trade him away. He had a good first couple games, and then I was like, "There's no way he's going to sustain this the whole year." I thought defenses were going to catch up to what they were doing, but he was just a monster all year.
But it didn't. They did, but it didn't happen until the
playoffs.
Divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
We'll go into trades later, right?
Yeah, we're going through trades later. Yeah,
I'm not supposed to give anything away.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we'll go through trades a little bit later. So Lamar Jackson was in the 13th round, and he ended up as quarterback 1 of the year all over. I thought Austin Eckler was a great value this year, grabbed in the 7th round, and he ended up at running back 6. Even after Melvin Gordon came back, he was still a solid like running back 2 or almost running back 1.
And that just makes you think, like Melvin Gordon, I'm going to cuss again. He fucked himself.
That's fine.
Because he basically showed to the NFL that it was the system more so than it was him.
Yeah,
when Austin Eckler is performing like that.
Yeah.
So now I believe he's a free agent.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he's going to kind of prove his worth and ask for a lot of money. You can't really do that now.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'll be interesting to see.
It definitely will be. And yeah, like you said, he kind of realized he fucked up too, because he came back way earlier than I think he was planning on coming back, because he was like, "Oh shit, they're doing good. Like, let me jump back in here." And then what happened when he came back? The team actually did worse. And he came back soon after I traded for Keenan Allen. We'll get into that later. But he came back soon after I traded for him, and it was like week 5 or 6, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and like Austin Eckler was still like killing. He didn't get as many carries, but he was destroying in the air.
Oh, that was like week 3 or something, because he was a part of the Lamar Jackson trade.
Yeah, Keenan Allen trade was week 3. But yeah, Austin Eckler, I think Melvin Gordon came back in like week 6 or something. I think it was something like that. And they just started doing awfully, like terrible after that. I put Mark Andrews in this because he was kind of an unknown going into the year. He's Lamar Jackson's obviously like one of his top go-to receivers / tight ends, pass catcher, I should say. And even though he was kind of battling injury all year, he still ended up at tight end number 4. And at a 9th round pick, I think that's a pretty valuable player. And I don't know where he's going to...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was he more of a late bloomer?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it up. Yeah, he's not like a rookie. Or no, yeah, he is. He was a rookie. He did really well in the back half of the year.
JK, week 1, 20 points. Week 2, 21 points. So
yeah, so he started off strong.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I think he had a kind of
Yeah,
a lull in
I'm
the
looking
middle.
like week 10 on, he had 2 games under 12 points.
Yeah,
So I mean, pretty
yeah,
important at the tight end position where, it's not very deep.
yeah. I mean, yeah, he didn't give you zeros, which was really big for a tight end position. Yeah, like you said, he after week 2, he had like occasionally he sprinkled in some of those bigger games of 10 or over.
Mm-hmm.
About half of his games were over 10 and half of them were under. But at least he wasn't giving you a zero like some of
Yep.
the other guys that you might pick up off the waiver wire. And if they get a touchdown, then you're happy. Otherwise, you're basically screwed. So.
Yeah.
So I just threw him in the mix because I don't think necessarily that he would really win this, but he was very valuable, I think, for where he was grabbed um, in the drafts. And then Christian McCaffrey, obviously, he was number 2 overall or number 3 drafted. I don't know, but he was running back 1 on the year, and he's basically, if you separate his running numbers and his receiving numbers, he's basically a running back 1 and a wide receiver 1 mixed into one player. So he was fantastic this year, and he's definitely
He's actually the only player with our format that scored. Well, no, he was only beat out by Lamar Jackson for the whole year. I mean, he beat out all the rest of QBs, everybody.
yeah, he had a huge year. He had a massive year,
Yeah.
unprecedented. Um, and then I put the Pats defense in here because they propelled Courts to many many wins for the first like 3 quarters of the season.
Yeah.
So I put them in there, and they are definitely like possibly a keeper. Like they're at least in the consideration to being a keeper. Like I
Well, I know we'll talk about it later, but I'm
yeah
looking at their stats through the season. Their bye week was week 10.
yeah
Before that, they were averaging about 15, 20 points a game.
it's fucking
But if you
crazy.
look after that, they
Yeah
only had, so week 11 on, they had only 2 games of over 10 points. The rest were 7 or lower.
yeah. Um, and I think part of it, like actually most of it, was that their schedule sucked. Like they had an easy ass schedule the whole year.
I
So
mean, they played the NFC East.
yeah, the rest of the NFC East did not have high-powered offenses. So, and then I threw Michael Thomas in here, and he did fantastic this year. He was great. He was drafted in the second round, and he ended up at wide receiver 1 this year. So,
Yeah,
um,
far and away the best receiver of the
oh, by
year.
far, I think he was right behind Christian McCaffrey, wasn't he? Or
I
close
can check
behind him.
that.
You're very handy with all these lists you got.
2
Well,
screens going, baby.
there you go.
Oh yeah, Michael Thomas was second. I'm trying to pull up. I should be able to. Christian McCaffrey 413.2 points. Michael Thomas 300.1 points.
Oh, gee, wait,
Uh,
really?
yep. So that just shows you how dominant Christian McCaffrey really was
Yeah,
this year.
that's
Like it's
insane.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
CMC
monstrous.
averaged 25.8 points per game. Per
Oh yeah,
game.
yeah, that's insane. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, like he is, it's basically him and Lamar Jackson that are in contention here for the most valuable player. I think I would have to go with Lamar Jackson just at the value that
Yeah,
he
because
was
I
gotten.
believe you drafted him in what, 13th round?
Yeah, the 13th round. So he's going to be a great keeper for you next year. I would assume you probably
Spoiler alert.
keep him. Yeah. I mean, if you don't keep him at a like, so say his average draft position is probably going to be in like the second or third round, so you'll probably get him in like the 7th round, which is great for that caliber
Yeah,
of
for
quarterback.
him.
Yeah, so that'll allow you to get like your monster running backs and wide receivers, and also
Yeah.
still have like the number 1 quarterback. So. All right.
Yep.
So for the
While
playoff,
I'm looking at my real quick.
yeah. Go ahead.
While I'm looking at my list, do you want to hear the lowest scoring player of the year?
Is it somebody in the negatives?
It is -4. It is
Wait. No, go ahead.
Corey Clement.
Oh, Corey Clement.
Corey Clement of the Philadelphia Eagles. He ended the
Man.
season on IR.
And did he have like two
He
fumbles before?
Yeah, he had a fumble week 2 and a fumble week 5. Then he was out for the rest of the year.
And he had no rushing yards?
It's not saying any yards on here. So
Man, Corey Clement had a rough year. Oh man, that's rough. Well, we're gonna do the playoff MVP here because it's a shoe-in because we already
Okay.
talked about him. But I was gonna go to least valuable player, but that will be next. The playoff MVP through, basically 2 dominant performances in weeks 15 and 16, Kenyon Drake. And I don't think there's really.
Woo!
Yeah, I know. I don't think there's really any sort of competition for this because he was just a monster. Like we said, he put up 70 total fantasy points in the 2 weeks of the playoffs. So he propelled.
Yeah, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, he propelled Benaya to the championship. He wasn't able to win it for him. Maybe if he'd gotten 39 points in round 2, he might have won it. But
Exactly. Put it all on Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, it's all Kenny Drake's fault. If only he had scored again or gotten 30 more yards. So onward to the least valuable players this year. I have a mini rant. Let me tell you about this guy, Alexander Madison, the number one handcuff of the year, because we all know Dalvin Cook is going to get hurt. Guaranteed. He's going to get hurt. So I have Alexander Madison, who is a fantastic runner behind a fantastic offensive line. I held him in one of my spots for an entire year for Dalvin Cook. And he gets hurt the exact same week that Dalvin Cook gets hurt and goes out. What it showed. I spent a bench spot on him the whole year only for him to get hurt the same time that the starter gets hurt. He was a worthless piece of crap.
If I'm cussing, you can too.
I've cussed many times already, but yeah.
I have to get all my cussing out after school. So.
Yeah, he was my least valuable player of this year. We have others on this list, and we can go through them. But for me, like,
Can I tell you why I think he's not the least valuable player of the year?
Oh no, I understand completely that he's not legitimately the least valuable player. But he was just a disappointment to me. He is not the least valuable player because you didn't expect him to do well every week. Mm-hmm. So, like, were there other people that were not on this list that you were thinking might be the least valuable player? Or no, this is kind of a comprehensive list.
Yeah, I think
of who all you think maybe.
Yeah. You want to go down the list?
Maybe OBJ.
Yeah, OBJ could be on here.
Yeah.
You wanna tell all our viewers at home?
Yeah. I can go through
millions of viewers.
So all millions of viewers. That's right.
Yeah.
So I have David Johnson on this list. Unfortunately, his was more due to injury, I think, than anything else, and then he got replaced by Kenyon Drake. Yeah. I had Baker Mayfield on this list, who was hyped up to no end at the beginning of the year. I had Ty Johnson, who was the fill-in for Kerryon, and he was going to be the workhorse in Kerryon's absence. Didn't work out. Antonio Brown, who was drafted near the beginning of drafts because he was going to be a monster and the only person that Derek Carr threw to on the Oakland Raiders. Juju Smith-Schuster, who was also drafted in like the first or second round and ended up outside the top like 40. AJ Green, who wasn't necessarily drafted super high, but he was expected to come back in like week 3 or 4 and never played the whole year. And then OJ Howard, who was a highly touted tight end breakout this year, and then he did not do anything. So who do you think on this list is the top of your least valuable player?
Well, just looking at this, this is actually a tough one. I'm not really decided. Because AJ Green, you knew he was hurt coming into the season, I believe, right?
Yeah, yep.
Antonio Brown, there were at the time we drafted, I believe he was already starting to go crazy. I
Yeah,
think.
but he was still on the team, and like it didn't look like he was gonna be kicked off or anything. Maybe traded. He was trying to get traded, but
Yeah.
and then they just
After
kind of
signing a big ass deal.
yeah. I am gonna go with David Johnson
Yeah.
because I
Well,
think
okay, so I was yeah, go ahead.
he went into this year as being I don't know which round he was drafted in. He was one of the top 2 rounds, I'm sure,
Yep.
because he's one of the top running backs of the league. He did get hurt like it was like week 6 or 7, I think, and then you weren't sure like it was kind of the in between. He wasn't for sure out, he wasn't for sure in,
Yeah.
and so you like kept playing him just in case he was playing, and I think that's what hurt people the most was if you have David Johnson, you didn't know whether or not to play him, and you couldn't really play the backups if David Johnson was starting, so you were kind of in a neutral zone, trying
Yeah,
to
so
figure out
I'm
if he was
I'm
going to play.
looking at his schedule for the year. So for the first 6 weeks, he averaged about 15 points a game.
Yeah, he did pretty well at the beginning of the
Yeah,
year.
so people are thinking, you know what, this is gonna be my workhorse running back. This is who I drafted. Perfect.
Yeah,
Week 7, he's playing the Giants. You expect him to have a huge game after having 25 points the week before against Atlanta. He gets hurt. You know, it happens. Then he misses 2 games, and week 10 he has negative half a point.
yep,
Misses 2 more games. Then finishes the season out 3.4 points, 12.3, 0.6, and then 1.2 points to end his year.
yeah. That was a very disappointing second half of the year. Um,
Yeah, and you gotta. I mean, after week 6, you gotta think. If he's starting, I have to play him
yeah,
because of how
exactly.
successful he was early in the year. So that's why I definitely do agree with you
Yeah,
for the least valuable player of the year.
yeah. I think that he kind of fits the mold the best, even though it was due to injury. But he did come back and he was playing and he couldn't just sit him. So you're right. I think
Mhm.
that's kind
Yeah.
of the best one. So all right, we're gonna move on to the transactions of the year. We're gonna talk trades. So at the beginning of the year, Rio started off the trading with, I think it was Adam, right? Adam.
Whoever had Cooper Cup,
Yeah, I think it was Adam.
I
Because
believe
Adam had
so.
Tyreek Hill after that. Yeah, so I didn't write it down. I should have written that down. Yeah, so Rio traded Tyreek Hill and Damian Williams for Cooper Cup, that seemed lopsided. I put it looked pretty even, but it seemed pretty
It
lopsided.
wasn't.
Yeah, because Damian
And
Williams is
I
the
even
starter.
told Ryo that too. Tyreek Hill, like I
Oh,
believe he was hurt at the beginning of the year, right?
that's right. He was hurt. Maybe that was kind of why they traded. I think
Yeah.
maybe that was even, but we didn't quite know how long Tyreek Hill was going to be out, and Cooper Cup had put up a couple of good games, I think, at the beginning of the year. I
Okay.
don't know. Maybe it's a little more even than I thought, but looking at it on paper, it does not look like an even trade.
Yeah. If all sides are healthy, yes, it's definitely lopsided. But I think
Right.
that kind of we'll bail Ryo out on that one.
Yeah, well, and I think it looked maybe lopsided, but it ended up good for him because Cooper Cup
Yep.
went nuts and Damian Williams kind of faded into the background, and Tyreek Hill didn't play for a few weeks. So I think it actually worked in Ryo's favor, even though it didn't quite look so good at the beginning. And
Yep.
then Chad, no, I think actually ours was the next trade. So I'll drop down to that one. I put these kind of out of order because I didn't know if I was going to do
Okay.
all of them or not. But
I
I
think this is the biggest trade of the year, like
this
name wise.
except for the very one at the end. The one at the very end was huge as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so these are pretty close, I think. But yeah, so I traded Lamar Jackson and Devontae Adams to you for Kyler Murray, Keenan Allen off of 3 monster games. And
Yeah.
your words, it was my pick of the New England wide receivers. And for some stupid reason, I thought Josh Gordon was going to be the better of those two New England wide receivers. And that was the stupidest thing I think I did all year. If I had taken Julian Edelman on that trade, I think I would have won that trade pretty handily. Like, even though you got Lamar Jackson and Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, like, while he wasn't fantastic, he was still like okay. And then Kyler Murray did pretty good for me most of the year. He was a very good, like, back end quarterback one who was consistent most of the year. And Devontae Adams got hurt right after the trade.
Yeah,
So
but yeah, but I think every week he was playing though, he did reasonably well.
yeah,
Because I knew I could like if he's out, he's out. I can't play him. But
right.
when he was in, he was still producing. So I mean, that's a
Yeah.
little
No,
feel good for me.
I agree with you, but he was out for like quite
A
a while.
lot,
Yeah.
a
So
long ass time. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that it ended up a little more even than I think it would have had Devontae Adams stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I learned definitely not to overreact to a couple of good games at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
or a couple of bad
I
games.
believe the I believe the hype of Lamar.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I did too, but I didn't think it was going to be that high.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna drop back down to like the 20s, like lower 20s for most weeks. But he just kept it up. So, and then I think Chad traded uh Adam. He traded Adam, T.Y. Hilton for Zach Ertz and DK Metcalf. So that turned out hugely lopsided. T.Y. Hilton did not do crap the rest of the year. And this was kind of the beginning of the end for Adam, I think. Well, this and a couple of more
I mean, his
trades.
team sucked all year.
Yeah. Wait, did I miss? Didn't he trade? He traded for Saquon too, didn't he? Or did he have Saquon?
That's at the end. That's
How
at the
did he
bottom
get?
of your list.
Yeah. No, he traded away Saquon at the end of the year. I
You
missed
missed
this
that one.
trade. No, hang on. No, sorry. No, he had Saquon. He had Saquon. And he traded for Zeke. That's the next one. Sorry. Yeah, so Chad flipped T.Y. Hilton for Zach Ertz and DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf broke out in the second half. And Zach Ertz he did okay at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year, he finally picked it up and he did a lot better. And
Yeah,
that turned out.
and high end tight ends are so rare. There's only 3 or 4 good ones a year, so to
Yeah.
have one of those is huge for like a potential contender.
Oh, definitely. And that really helped Chad out. And that got him to the playoffs, that DK Metcalf and Zach Ertz. And he didn't have to worry about tight end for the rest of the year, so that was good for him. And then Adam took T.Y. Hilton once realizing that T.Y. Hilton sucked. And he flipped T.Y. Hilton and Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy for Zeke, which I think was huge. That was a huge trade. But I
I
think
don't know how we pulled that one off.
I don't know. I mean, he gave him a lot of good, like, decent names, I guess.
Yeah, names that were relevant, a couple years ago.
LaShawn McCoy. T.Y. Hilton was supposed to be the wide receiver one, but he was just hurt most of the year.
That's
And then
true.
Leonard Fournette had a
He's
solid year, and it actually, him and Zeke had pretty similar years. For the most part, I think Zeke was more consistent, but Leonard Fournette had a few big games.
I think
Um,
Fournette had a few big games at the beginning of the year, right?
yeah, and I think that's when he flipped him after that, which I think worked out for him. And I think that kind of turned out relatively even. And then later in the year, I was desperately in need of a tight end after my tight end woes were real this year. I grabbed O.J. Howard in the draft in like the 5th or 6th round. Then I grabbed, he was wildly unsuccessful. After week 1, I grabbed T.J. Hawkinson for like $27 on waivers. Way too much money for the Hawks trap. And then he didn't do me any good, so then I picked up Will Disley, who did good for me for like 3 games, and then he got put on the IR because he got hurt. So I was in desperate need of a tight end.
I think you're just cursed.
I am. My tight end position, until this trade, my tight end position was cursed. I traded James Conner and Robert Woods, which seemed like an awful trade, for George Kittle and David Montgomery. But I needed a tight end, and this seemed totally lopsided in Courts' direction. But then James Conner got hurt, and Robert Woods disappeared for a while, and I had George Kittle, and I had David Montgomery, who didn't do well. But um, I needed that solid tight end, and I think that really this trade really helped that out and kind of helped me in the second half of the season kind of get my wins and get to the playoffs, which was all I needed. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, all you gotta do is get in.
exactly, and then anything can happen.
Yeah, Kittle's actually tied for #1 tight end on the year. I'm
There you
just looking
go.
it up now.
Yeah, Kittle was a
Yeah,
beast.
week 15, 20 points. Week 16, 16 points. I mean,
Yeah,
that says all it needs to right there.
yeah, he was really big in the playoffs, and it really helped.
Yeah,
Um,
just week 8 on, super solid. But
oh
carry
yeah,
on.
that was like right after I traded for him. So
I think he had one, if you don't count week 13 where he got 2 points, every other week besides that was 11 or higher. So, makes a
I
difference.
lost you there.
I was just saying, after week 8,
Yeah,
not counting one week where he had 2.4 points, every
yeah,
other week was 15.7 points or higher. So,
yeah, baby.
especially at the tight
That's
end, especially at the tight end position, makes a big difference.
that's really big. And then I was having a lot of troubles with all of my pass catchers this year. After I traded for Keenan Allen, he did crap for me. I couldn't get a wide receiver two to save my life, so I traded Cooper Kupp for Cooper Kupp. And I traded away John Brown and Ty Johnson right after Kerryon Johnson got hurt. I picked up Ty Johnson for $2 on waivers, and I flipped him with John Brown for Cooper Kupp, who just came off of like 5 massive games. And I played him because I thought he was going to be a beast, and it turned out to be right before Cooper Kupp's like third quarter slump before he came back on in the playoffs and like the last few weeks. Um, but yeah, John Brown in that time was a beast. So like I think that at the beginning, like right after the trade happened, Ryo was in a good place, and then after that, like I think I got the better end of that deal
Yeah.
towards the playoffs. But and then you were part of another big trade. You traded Philip
The
Lindsay.
other the the other England wide
Did not.
receiver, the one that you chose
Yes,
not to take.
which was the stupidest thing I could have ever done. You traded away Julian Edelman for Philip Lindsay, Latavius Murray, and Robert. No, 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 no. Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
received
that's right.
Philip Lindsay, Latavius Murray, and Robert Woods, and you realized that Philip Lindsay sucked. And then you traded him to me for David Montgomery because I really needed
Yeah,
a running
because
back.
you didn't know that he sucked.
I didn't know that he sucked. You're right. I Well, it was right before Philip Lindsay had like one of the best running back schedules in football. Like he had one of the best schedules for running backs coming up, and I was like, if any time is the time, it's gonna be now. And he was like
Yeah,
he was taking over the snap count from Rice Freeman, and I thought for sure that was gonna be the time, and it just wasn't.
yeah. I think unfortunately that snap count started to go back towards Royce Freeman, and they were using Lindsley as a
I
third down back or something.
Well, it just became. I think Royce Freeman was more the pass catching third down back, but yeah,
Okay.
it definitely went more even
Whoops.
again after that. Um, and then the big trade at the end of the year. This is big keeper, uh, keeper potential here. Chad traded Michael Thomas for Saquon Barkley, Allen Robinson, and Aaron Rodgers. That is a huge trade, and I think
Yeah.
that Chad definitely got the better end of that. especially going into next year. It like Saquon didn't really help him until the very last week. Um, but I think Saquon's going to be much better next year without injury and all that. And Allen Robinson could be a potential keeper, or he's got a few good potential keepers on his team now that he can choose from. Um, so, but anyway, Adam I think was just trying to get rid of one of his other running backs, so that because he knew he couldn't keep two running backs.
Yeah.
So he was just
Which
trying to get
is,
a
I don't say this a lot about Adam, but that was actually a pretty smart move on his part. Thinking ahead, knowing that his team sucked ass.
yeah.
Just start playing for next year.
It was a smart move. So now next year he gets to build around Michael Thomas and Ezekiel Elliott. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty solid team to start off with. So anyway, speaking of actually,
That leads into our next topic pretty well, don't you
yeah, if we could
think?
do that. I was considering swapping the next two and doing keepers as the last thing we do, but I think we'll do this. We'll do the potential keepers. So we'll start with my team, and then we can go to your team. We'll skip to your team after this. So we'll do us two first. But um, I think obviously I'm gonna keep Dalvin Cook. That's a pretty solid keeper. The only one that I was I'm trying to figure out who my second keeper is gonna be. That's my biggest question. So I have Dalvin Cook that I'm definitely going to keep. I should be able to get him. He'll probably be a first round pick next year, and I got him in the third round, so I'll probably get him in the second round next year. So I was thinking of who else I might get. If I would take the chance on Cooper Kupp, that's a possibility. I got him, or he was grabbed in the fifth round this year, and he'll probably go in a similar round next year. But
Yeah.
if I just get him, um, he got a lot of touchdowns, but he wasn't necessarily the number one look for Jared Goff all year. So
Yeah, they spread it around over there in LA.
yeah, so we'll see. But he might be an okay value. AJ Brown, who I picked up near the end of the year, might be like if does just as well next year as he did the second half of the season this year. Like he could be a beast if Ryan Tannehill comes back. I know they're always a run first team, but he is the wide receiver one on that team, and
Yep.
he could do great things.
So what's the deal? I'm sure this question's already been asked and answered in our chat, but for a waiver pickup, if you keep a waiver pickup, what happens?
So this is something that maybe we could talk about. I was either thinking of doing the same thing where if you do have a waiver pickup, then you do like he's going to be drafted somewhere next round or next year.
Yep.
So wherever he's drafted, like say it might be like the fifth or the sixth round, something like that. That might be realistic. So you could do halfway between like 16 or 17, like because our rounds we do 16 rounds.
Yep.
So we could do like halfway between 17 and the fifth round. So that would be like 11.
11-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could get him maybe in the 11th round. Or we could also do it where the person, we're going to have to decide this before we decide keepers, obviously. Or we could pick a specific round. So you get so say you picked up like a Patrick Mahomes, who was picked up off of waivers last year, but he was going in like the second round this year. So like you could, instead of doing like the half between, you could pick a round, like say round 10. Like all waiver pickups are just round 10 for next year, or like round 7, or like whatever. When we can
Yeah.
decide that. I was thinking that it might just be good to just do the half anyways, because half of 17 and 2 is like what, 9, something
Ish,
like
yeah.
that. So I think that would be relatively fair as well. And as many times as you keep him, it keeps moving up.
Okay.
So like the next year, so say you got him in the 9th round in 2020, whoever it is, and they're like a second round pick, then it's half between there for the next round, next year too.
Yep.
So you get him in like the 5th round or 4th round. So, um, so that's something that we can talk about and really nail down in the off season here. But I think it's pretty fair to kind of do the halfway between where he was picked up last year and where he's going to be drafted this year. And there will be a date before we draft that we set the cutoff because ADPs, average draft positions, change a lot during the
Yep.
preseason. So we're gonna have to pick a day where that's settled, and I'll like print out a sheet of the average
Yeah.
draft position of everybody, and I will determine where, or we can determine where all of the keepers are, and which round draft picks they're gonna take up for everybody. So.
Okay.
Yep. And then the last person that I was considering was George Kittle, but he would be a second round pick, and
Where was he
depend-
drafted?
he was drafted in the second round this year.
Oh, of
So
course.
yeah, so I don't know if I would want to keep him. But also Dalvin Cook would be a second round pick, so I can't have two in the second round. Um, so that's also another thing you got to keep in mind is that you can't have two from the same round as your
Yep.
keeper. So. Um, So yeah, I don't know. I have some decisions to make for next year. I think I'm leaning a little more towards AJ Brown than anybody else because I think I would get him at the best value.
Yeah. I'm sure he's been doing good since Tannehill started, right?
Yeah, he has been. He's been doing very well, and he's a rookie. So like rookies
Yep.
always kind of do a lot better in the second half of the season, anyways. That's kind of when they break out.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and especially, Tannehill being the elite passer he is going to boost everybody's passing numbers in Tennessee, right?
oh, for sure, of course. So yeah, we'll see. I have a little bit to decide, but that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. So.
Yep.
We'll move on to your team, Mix and Mac. So I assumed that Lamar Jackson was a lock.
A
He
fair
was
assumption.
drafted in the 13th round, and he'll probably the way he played this year, he might get drafted in like the first or second round.
Yeah.
So we'll have to look at the ADP once it comes up, but you'll probably get him in like the what 6th or 7th?
Yeah,
Yeah,
around
7th
there.
round. Yeah, so that's a pretty good value for Lamar Jackson. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up. Like you could grab, like I mean, Alvin Kamara was a first round pick, and he ended up outside the top 10 of running backs.
Yep. Running back number 12.
Yeah. Um, Chris Godwin was a 7th round draft pick, and he broke out. Like he's a potential keeper at value, maybe.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously like Devonte Adams is a top elite wide receiver. So there's definitely options when you're looking forward to next year. What way are you leaning right now? There could
You
be
know,
more. There could be somebody
I
else
haven't.
not on this list.
My computer's freezing again. But you definitely. I can't justify not keeping Lamar Jackson, obviously. The other one, as of now, I'm leaning towards Godwin just based on the value, like you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Adams' ADP is, especially with the down year Rodgers had this year.
Yeah. That's true.
Um,
Yeah, maybe since the Packers are more it's not see people say that Rodgers had a down year. I don't really think he had a down year.
I mean, they're just running the ball a lot more.
Yeah, it's just the way the offense was run. So I don't think
Yeah,
he's playing any worse than normal. He does throw it away a lot more than I think he used to. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, he just hasn't had the passing volume that he's had in the past. But yeah, that coming with that, Devonte Adams might not be as valuable as he was
Yeah,
previous year.
and you brought up a good point earlier where if I keep someone like a Kamara or an Adams that's a top 3 pick,
Hmm.
like who else could I have gotten there? If I
Right.
take like Godwin, who we'll say 5th round around there,
Yeah.
then I still have those top 4 rounds to really get some like high-end players.
Yeah, and who
So
knows, if you wanted him, you could probably grab Devontae Adams again.
exactly,
So,
yeah.
so,
Uh,
yeah, if you, especially, yeah, you're gonna be in good shape. You're gonna have your top like, yeah, 4 or 5 rounds probably to get a solid team without any draft picks in there. So, obviously, like the elite
yeah.
of the elite are probably gonna be kept for the most part. So you might not get your pick of them, but you get that
Well,
like tier.
I don't know about that. It's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up because obviously if you don't keep an elite player, you get another elite player in his place.
Yeah,
So I mean, I've never played in a keeper before, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah,
Uh,
it'll definitely be interesting to see which way people are leaning, as far as who they're gonna take as their keepers, and then who you're gonna be able to pick up in the first few rounds. So,
yeah.
like, I'm very content because I'm not getting like Dalvin Cook in round one. I'd be getting him in round two.
Yep.
So, um,
Which is still definitely an upgrade.
yeah, it's an upgrade. Because he was running back what 3 this year, I think.
I
I
can
think he was
pull
running
it
back
up.
3, but yeah, so getting him in the second round would still be a deal.
So, okay, my question to you is, will we be knowing our will we have to pick our keepers before we find our draft positions?
That is also, so we were talking about that in the chat, and we didn't come up with an answer quite yet, and that is something we're definitely gonna figure out before we either pick our keepers or pick our draft position. Um, we're definitely going to. It's like a chicken or the egg scenario, kind of, because like, and on one hand, you want to know the keepers before you pick your draft position, but at the same time, like, you kind of might want to know your draft position before deciding to take, like, that could be the difference between you taking Devonte Adams or Chris Godwin.
Yeah, like for me personally, I'm thinking, let's say I'm drafting the number 1 pick overall, right?
Yeah,
That would mean okay, so I get the first round pick. So I don't want to, I mean, I can't keep someone from the first round, but I'll
right.
pick a first round. But my second round pick is all the way at the end. Now, if
You
I had,
you could keep someone from the first round.
yeah, but I'm saying your keeper spot won't be used in the first round. We
It
already talked. We already decided that, right?
Well, no, it would be if you're so like if you were to grab Devonte Adams as your keeper. He was drafted in the first round, and if his ADP is in the first round, then it's going to be a first round keeper.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if you drafted anybody like second round or beyond, they can't become a first round draft pick
Okay.
because you're taking the average between the ADP and where you drafted them previously, and that would be 1.5. And I think I decided that we're going to round down to give the
That
player
makes sense.
a
Yeah.
little more value.
But anyways, hypothetically, if I had someone that was, with if I kept him, I'd have to keep him in the second round.
Yeah,
But I'm picking at the end of the second round. I'll definitely try to pick someone where I am picking later in that round.
yeah,
Hypothetically.
right,
So I
yeah.
mean,
So like, and I think Benaya had um the other scenario where he would prefer to know keepers before he knew his draft position. So
yeah.
like,
So when we declare our keepers, do we all have to declare them at the same time?
well, you can go in right now technically and declare your keepers, but they can always be edited. Like
Okay.
you can't do it on the phone. You have to go on the computer and declare your keepers. But yeah, everybody either we can declare them on the website, or people can tell me which people they want to keep, and I can kind of keep an organized list. Because we're gonna have to draft offline anyways this year because the ESPN app doesn't support the way that I want to do the draft next year.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to figure that out, but um, that won't be a problem. We'll figure that out
So if
later.
I put in my keepers, can you see it right now?
I could look. I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably.
But and you said these can be edited after if I pick them and then I want to change them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. I just submitted my keepers.
Let
You'll like my
us.
keepers.
Yeah. So if you go to the league tab and then keepers,
No, I already did. Oh, let's
No,
see.
to look at everybody else's keepers. So you are being bold and keeping Matt Prater and the Seahawks defense.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see everybody's keepers who they have decided to keep, and nobody has really picked anybody except for Adam and you. So
I actually can't see Adams.
oh, you can't?
No, it says selection hidden.
Oh, all of your guys's are hidden?
So it's hidden to us until probably the keepers are. So according to this, keepers lock August 1st, 2020 at 7 o'clock Central.
Yeah, I set that, but that can be changed. So,
Yeah, so I think it's gonna not show us each other's keepers until that day.
that makes sense. So, well, I'm sorry I just blurted your keepers out to the world. I know those are very valuable
It's a
players.
secret.
Yeah. Um, but all right, well, let's move on to some other people's. I think Zerlina never hit you. You're tearing me apart. Has some very serious questions to answer. He has some potential values, and um, it really could be a multitude of his players. But the ones I have in here, he grabbed Derrick Henry in the third round, or whoever picked him up grabbed him in the third round this
Yeah.
year. Um, and he could be a very good, like he might go. He was a top 10 running back
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, he's gonna be round one. There's no doubt about it in my head.
Yeah.
So
So he might be a
so if
good
he was
round
capped in
two
the second
keeper, but
round,
at the same time, he does have Kenyon Drake, who was a monster near the end of the year. So
and you would think Kenyon Drake's got to be a first round or second round pick next year based on how he ended his year.
yeah, I
And I
don't.
think
That's
in my opinion, the value you would get out of Kenyon Drake outweighs the value you would get from Derrick Henry.
yeah. You kind of have to see where the ADP is next year
Yeah.
because, like, even though he did have a fantastic year, like maybe people won't quite believe he'll do that for a full year. And they might draft him in like the fourth or fifth round, so it won't be as much of a value. So I don't know. He's got some questions to answer at the running back position, and I think Devontae Parker, as long as uh, Ryan Fitzpatrick is still there in Miami, I think Devontae Parker would be a fantastic keeper because he was picked up on waivers. And he ended up from week 4 on, he was like the wide receiver 2.
Yeah, he was monster, and nobody would have expected that. But
Yeah. So I think he'd be a very valuable keeper as long as Fitzpatrick is there. If Josh Rosen is the starter for some crazy ass reason next year, he would not be worth keeping. But I mean, and you can also choose to only keep one or zero if you really wanted to. So that's always up
you're
for
telling me I don't have to keep the Seahawks defense?
correct. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, maybe be a little bit wild and pick up random defenses next year, then you could.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to keep two. There's a limit of two keepers, but you don't have to keep that many if you don't want to.
All
Um,
right.
and moving on to Big Ben's bathroom. I think he would definitely keep Aaron Jones. Got him in the fourth round this year, but he also has Saquon on his team, so that is a dilemma. He cannot keep both of those players since they're both running backs. So, um, who would
So I
you
think
take?
this is where knowing where you're drafting can really affect him because Saquon, if he's in the back half of the first round, I think he'd want to keep Saquon because Saquon's top 2, 3 running back.
Yeah,
Versus if you're at the front, let's say he's number one pick overall, he
yeah,
can take Saquon and still keep Aaron Jones.
yeah. That's true.
So
Yeah, I mean, that's really helpful, but at the same time, like knowing somebody else's keepers and knowing what's available before going and like because I think the way I'm going to do the draft position this year is going to be somewhat of a lottery. So like um the people who got like the last like 3 or 4 positions of the league are going to have a slightly higher chance of getting a better pick. Just slightly. It's not going to be like overly excessive, but
yeah,
just slightly more. Um, this is just an idea, and this can change over the offseason too. But if and I'm thinking that when the person is picked, they get to pick their draft position because the first overall pick isn't necessarily coveted.
Yep.
Like maybe in this sort of format, it might be because there are less elite players available, probably. But either way, I'll give them the opportunity to pick where they want to draft. So knowing that you, or knowing what's out there, you can decide oh hey, maybe I have a solid wide receiver or a solid running back, and I can wait for the other one, or I want that one overall pick. It can go the other way too. Who the keepers are, and maybe there's not that many great options at the top, and so it's kind of a chicken or the egg scenario.
Yeah, I think it makes the biggest difference at the beginning of the draft. First round, second round. After that, I don't think it's a huge deal.
No, that's where your playmakers are going to be. So I think that first round is kind of that's a big pick, especially if you're keeping somebody that's of value to you.
Yep.
That you think you're getting a good value on. So Chad has a big decision at the running back position, whether he's going to keep Aaron Jones or Saquon. That could be good for the rest of us. So who knows? There might be some top talent at the beginning of that first round, but for his other keeper, though, he's got some options. He's got Zach Ertz, who was drafted in the 4th round this year, and might go similarly this year, or next year. And then DJ Chark, who was huge at the beginning of the year and kind of tailed off near the end, but he was a waiver wire pickup, and he did fantastic. So I don't know. I should probably pull up the rest of his team. I kind of went through this quick and picked the top few who I thought might be useful, but is that kind of what have you pulled up Chad's?
Yeah,
he's got Amari Cooper, but I don't really personally. I don't think that he's that great of a keeper.
Where was he drafted this year? Do you know?
I can look it up. 3rd round.
Okay, so yeah, he's probably not a keeper candidate.
No, but he did have he has Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary are both running backs. He has Allen Robinson, who was drafted in the 6th round.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, DK Metcalf too. So yeah, he ended up doing pretty good at the end of the year. He was very solid. DK Metcalf was drafted in the 8th round. Wow. Really? Yeah, he was drafted in the 8th round, which is
that reach might come back to bite him. Because if you reach for someone one year, they're not going to be a great keeper option the next year.
Well, DK Metcalf was traded. Adam drafted him in the 8th round.
Okay, well, Adam being stupid might cost Chad or might make a decision for him.
I mean, Chad could decide to only keep one player. So
that's true.
Who knows? Or he could keep Zach Ertz in the 4th for sure. Who knows? But did I lose you? I might have lost Neil.
No, I'm still here.
He might be gone forever.
Can you hear me? Hello.
I can't hear him. Uh-oh.
Ah, shit. I'm here. I'm here.
Are you still here?
I am still here, but you can't hear me, can you?
Oh, no. I lost Neil. Well, I'm going to continue on this
bold... Can you hear me now?
This bold journey by myself. So moving on to Too Many Duds. We have Christian McCaffrey, who is not even a question of whether or not he's going to be kept. 1st round, 1st overall, he's going to be kept. He was a monster this year. All right, we are back. I'm sorry, Neil had some technical difficulties, so
that's a lie.
I don't know. He dropped on me. I don't know.
Brown people's Wi-Fi is the best,
I guess. So we're gonna move on to Too Many Duds.
I don't know. We'll let the video tell the story.
Yeah, that's true. The video has both of us still talking, even though we couldn't see or hear each other.
No,
Or no,
I can
you could
see and
hear
hear
me.
you.
Yeah, you could hear me. I could not see and hear you. So your sending was not very good. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep. So,
I don't think so.
anyway, I think Too Many Duds now renamed his team from Too Many Cooks to Too Many Duds. I think CMC is not even a question. He's going to be kept.
Well, there's another thing where, let's say he's first pick overall. Well, actually, it wouldn't matter either way. Keep him. Never mind. I'm being stupid.
Yeah. No, I mean, no, you're right. He could keep somebody else, and if he has first pick overall, then he can grab
Yeah, yeah.
McCaffrey. You're right.
Or if he was at the back half of the first round, then he could keep CMC.
Yeah. To be honest, though, I don't think there's really anybody else on his team that's really worth keeping. Um, yeah. I mean, maybe Julian Edelman. He was drafted. When did you draft him? In the fourth
Good
round.
question.
38th overall in the fourth round.
I mean, I think that's where he'd be going again.
Yeah. So I don't really know if there's any like values on his team. He could
Yeah.
he could choose just he has Mike Evans who is pretty good, but he was also a top. He was drafted in the third round. Um,
You can always keep Antonio Brown.
he could keep Antonio Brown, but Antonio Brown was drafted early too. Like it's not like he was picked up off of waivers. I mean, he did pick him up off of waivers, but it's his value for next year is determined on where he was drafted last year.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you can't pick up some. So, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, so like he was drafted in the second round this year. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be really worth the draft position, but yeah, who knows? I don't know. Mike Evans could be kept. Patriots defense, if he's feeling ballsy, could be kept. I think maybe he'll just keep CNC and nobody else.
Yeah.
Kind of build anew around Christian McCaffrey. That could be how it goes. But all right, on
I
to
mean,
team.
like you
Oh,
said,
sorry. Go ahead.
CMC's got. CMC is all he's got. You were right.
Yeah, that's really his only solid player. His only consistently solid player, I should say. All right, team try and stop me from auto picking. James's team. Um, this was also kind of a question. I think you could get some solid value out of Jarvis Landry, who did pretty good most of the year. Um, and Neil dropped on me again, but you could probably hear.
I am still here.
You're still here. Your video is gone on my. There we go. It's back
My
up.
back.
You're back.
Nah,
You
that
are.
one was my fault.
That was your fault. That
I
was a
hit the video
manual
button.
technical difficulties. Um, yeah. So Landry, I think, could be a good value in the sixth round. I think he ended up being.
He
Was he?
did pull it up at the end of the year. Let me
Yeah,
check.
he was pretty good for most of the year. Um, where am I at here?
Yeah, second half of the season for Landry was relatively strong.
It's
Yeah,
good.
it
Yeah.
looks like he's about 10, 12 points a game. So, I mean, not terrible.
Yeah. He had a few big games in there. He had a 32-point game and a
Yeah.
20-point game. He had two 20-point games. But yeah, I mean, I think he'd be a solid wide receiver too for you. So he might be worth the keep. Leonard Fournette could be kept. Maybe he was second round though, so I don't know if he's really worth the keep.
Mark Ingram he was really underrated, I feel, this year. Did you know that he finished the year at running back number 8?
He was running back 8, and he did like. The problem was, do you look at all of his games though? He did it on the back of like 4 or 5 like 20-point games or above, and then the rest were like below 10. So like he might have been an okay running back 2 with running back 1 upside, but
I mean, yeah, I get that he wasn't very consistent. But those big games, like he had a 33.5 point game.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
risk reward.
Yeah, that's true. He could keep Austin Hooper, who
When was
was
Hooper drafted?
he was drafted in the 12th round.
Oh yeah, 117th overall. So
Yeah.
maybe.
So he could be a good keeper. I don't think really Patrick Mahomes would be worth a third round. So I think yeah, Landry and maybe Austin Hooper would be good keepers for next year for James.
Yeah.
Moving on to my tight end, Ertz when I fart. He has Nick Chubb, who we got in the third round, which I think would be a pretty good keeper for next year. I think third round would probably be pretty similar to where he would go next year, unless Kareem Hunt is not
Yeah.
there, because he was a
Which is
beast.
a possibility.
Yeah, so maybe Kareem Hunt's not there, and he goes as a first round pick next year. So you could get him in the second round. That might be a pretty good um, possibility. Otherwise, maybe Travis Kelce. I didn't put him down on here. He wouldn't be a value, but
Yeah, I mean, Adam Thielen was drafted 4th round.
yeah,
Maybe. Because yeah, he did come back for the playoffs
yeah.
after
Thielen did
being out
okay,
most of the year.
but Thielen really, yeah, he really wasn't that great. He was
I mean,
hurt
he got hurt like
nine or 10.
week 9,
Oh
yeah.
no, 8.
No, because week 9 he was active against Kansas City.
He was active, but he didn't play much.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he came back for a time against the Chargers in Green Bay, 15 and 16.
Yeah, but
But we'll
yeah,
see. I mean,
maybe.
it depends on where his ADP is.
Yeah, I mean, also he has Tyler Lockett, who was wide receiver 14 this year.
Yeah,
But he was also boomer bust. So, and like I put on here, he might also only want to keep one player. Or maybe actually I didn't put this guy in here, but Kareem Hunt, if he goes to a new team next year, he could be a bell cow.
possibly. Yeah.
So, and he was drafted in the 15th round. So he would be a
So there is value to be had there.
there is value to be had in Kareem Hunt. So that's a possibility. Um, for the running Mayfields, I think his are set. We could look at the rest of his team, but I think Austin Eckler as a this year's 7th round pick and Cortland Sutton as a 14th round pick this year. Those are both very solid. Like
Unless he wants to keep Jameis again.
he could keep Jameis is actually a good
He's a good fantasy
fantasy
quarterback.
Yeah. Um, so I mean possibly, but keeping a quarterback is
Yeah. I
unless
actually
it's
said
somebody
that.
like
That was
Lamar Jackson.
that was a joke.
But yeah, I think the rest of his team, he had OBJ, Devonta Freeman, Stephon Diggs, David Johnson. So he had some unfortunate first few round picks that didn't quite work out for him this year.
Mark Andrews drafted 9th round.
Yeah, that might be worth
Maybe,
keeping.
depending on the ADP, could be an option.
But Cortland Sutton ended up being a top 20 wide receiver, and he was grabbed in the 14th round. So
Yeah.
he might be worth. Who knows? Who knows? But those are just the potential keepers for the running Mayfields. Moving on to Josh Jacobs, Jingleheimer Schmidt. His name is my name too. He has DeAndre Hopkins, who was in the first round, who had a rough start to the year, but he still ended up as one of the top like 5. Yeah, he was number 5 wide receiver this year. So he might still be worth a first round pick. Maybe, but he's also got Josh Jacobs, who is a very solid rookie running back this year, and I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah, he's just so young, and just the way he runs breaks people down throughout the game.
Yep. So I think he's a solid keeper, and I think potentially John Brown, who was a waiver wire ad this year, but he ended up like in the back half of the season, he ended up pulling himself up to wide receiver 20. Like back half of the season, he had after week starting week 10, he only had 2 games under 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, consistency, that's huge, especially, for a playoff run or something.
Yeah, I think he'd be a solid wide receiver too. And if you can get like a Josh Jacobs maybe you get him in the 3rd or 2nd round, and you get John Brown. Say you get Josh Jacobs in the 3rd round, because I don't think he's going to be a 1st round pick. So you might be able to get him in like the 3rd round as a keeper value. And then you got John Brown as your wide receiver too. Then you can get a top end running back in round 1 and a top end wide receiver in round 2. And then you're golden. You got your running backs and wide receivers set.
Yeah.
So, and I think John Brown and Josh Allen are only going to take a step forward next year. So
yeah, and you could tell how they were both so comfortable in the offense this year.
yeah,
It's only going to get better.
Yeah, and John Brown is like perfect for Josh Allen because he's a burner, and Josh Allen loves throwing deep. So,
Yep.
And then moving on to Rogers Cup, which I think his are locked down. Adams' keepers are basically locked down this year. He's got Zeke, who was a 1st round pick, and Michael Thomas, who was a 2nd round pick. So there's really nobody else on his team that's worth keeping.
Yeah, his team, besides those two, legitimately sucks.
Yeah, well, that's what he ended up, playing for. At the end of the year. So.
And he was out of the playoffs. Smart move on his part.
Yeah, it was. That trade at the end of the year to get Michael Thomas was huge, knowing that he couldn't keep Zeke for next year anyways. So.
Yep.
Or not Zeke. Sorry, Saquon. But yeah, I think he's going to have a solid base to build his team around. And he's going to be formidable next year. All right, so I have a couple of crazy scenarios. I don't know if you read through these, but they're kind of nuts. Like if one thing had gone differently midway through the season, like things could have definitely changed. If James, the first scenario, James, if he had played Jarvis Landry over T.Y. Hilton in Week 8, which at that point Jarvis had a few good games and T.Y. Hilton really didn't do that well, he would have beaten Benaya and gone to the playoffs, and he would have taken Benaya's spot in the playoffs because Benaya's this was all I rewrote this specific bullet point like 4 times because I was like trying to figure out, especially with the 3-way tie between me, you, and James.
Yep.
I was trying to figure out like what all would happen. So James would have gotten 1 extra win. He would have had a better record than me. So he would have definitely been in the playoffs. Benaya would have had the same record as me and you, and I believe I had the tiebreaker over both of you, so I still would have been in the playoffs. But
Benaya would have been out of the playoffs.
Yes, so Benaya would have been out of the playoffs. He would have had the 3 seed, and he would have lost to Chad. I would have still won, so I would have beat Courts. And then Chad, with his monster game in the last week of the season, would have beat me and won the championship. So had James played Jarvis over T.Y. Hilton in Week 8, Chad would be the champion. So Chad, blame James. That's the reason that you did not win everything. And now a completely different scenario that is just as wild. If Brandon Metzler would have played Austin Eckler in Week 2 over any of his other running backs, which would have made sense because Austin Eckler was the only running back. I don't know why he didn't do it, but Austin Eckler was on the bench. If Austin Eckler played in Week 2 over any of his other running backs, he would have beat me. James would have went to the playoffs in my place. Courts would have beat him. Benaya would have beat Courts in the championship. So Benaya, the only reason that you're not the champion this year is because Brandon didn't play Austin Eckler in Week 2. So those are my wild.
I know Benaya has been insufferable as a previous defending champion now.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure you're not going to be even worse. So that'll be... We'll find that out.
my intention was to start a little bit more pretentious than everybody else has been. But also, I yes, I bought this trophy for me, but I also bought it because we can put 19 more years on this thing, and we can pass it
Yeah,
along to
that's
the champion
awesome.
every year.
And I think I speak for everybody when I say we are grateful that you did that, especially me,
Yeah.
because that's gonna be in my room next year.
Oh, that's what you think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think it's gonna have a permanent spot on my shelf over here,
we'll
for
see.
quite a few years to come. That's my goal, anyways. But yeah, I don't know if you have any other lingering comments about everything. We're gonna have a lot to figure out in the off season here.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure. We're gonna have to have our own owners' winter meetings.
we will. We're gonna go through it. We're going to figure out when we want to register the keepers, when we want to do draft position. We're gonna figure out everything that's needed for. I have a list of everything, but uh, we got to figure out.
I think the only way that we're gonna like actually figure stuff out is we're gonna have to meet. We're gonna have to get a quorum of us and meet in person.
I
Because
think
over
so.
chat, I feel like things just really don't get done.
Yeah, no,
So
I think so too. And we'll try to schedule a get together maybe in the summer sometime, um,
yeah,
and try to get all of our thoughts. I'll get like an outline of like a meeting list, uh, of what we need to do, an outline
yeah,
of what we need to figure out, and we can talk about it and hash it all out on that day and get all of our rules set so that we don't have any more scrambling around in the middle of the season, which happens every year. But no more scrambling around in the middle of the season to figure out everything that we need to figure out. So we'll
yeah,
figure out definite playoff schedules next year because I know we were still kind of talking about that in the middle of this.
yeah. My vote should just do away with divisions, but that's
Yeah,
just me.
we'll talk it all out and figure it all out in the summer. But thank you so much, Neil, for joining me on this final episode of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast. And I can,
And thank
yeah,
you for starting this podcast.
yeah,
And I think it's been fun for all of us to just watch it get better and better throughout the season. And I'm excited to see how it's going to be looking next year. It's going to look even more legit.
I hope so. I'm gonna have to step up my game and try to get some legitimate, like, not just use Skype and try to get some legitimate, add a little bit more legitimacy to the podcast itself.
Yeah,
And hopefully I've been doing this the voiceover class too, so I've been getting a little bit more comfortable on the microphone and just trying to get some tips as far as like mic presence and try to get some ideas as far as like sound quality and I'll probably try to get a setup for like the guest. I don't know how I can figure that out over like a separate computer, but I'll try to figure it all out
yeah.
and whatnot. But yeah, so all of you have a fantastic off season, knowing that I am your champion, your reigning champion, for the next 11 months, until the next champion is crowned, which will most likely be me. So another 12 months after that.
Mm.
So
Hey,
it's gonna be a good
I
year.
don't think. Can you show off the ring? I haven't seen the ring yet. Can't really see it because of the
It's
light.
tough to see. Yeah. Is this better or worse?
That's I can. Oh, that's great. Yeah, fantasy champion. It says with the Lombardi Trophy.
You bet.
I'm disgusted
Oh,
now.
on the side here, as a football and champion,
Champion.
and then it has the NFL logo and champion. Yeah, it's a good ring.
And
Yeah.
so does the ring move to the new winner too or no?
Yeah, it would. Um,
Okay,
and there
so it's
was
gonna be on my.
we can also discuss this as well. We talked about maybe like the ring could go to the overall points winner of
Yeah,
the year, or something like that, and we could
I
decide
think
that as
I
well.
think it'd be fun if we got a new ring each year. That way you could have something that you could keep. Maybe it'd be up to the winner to buy it for themselves.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think it'd be
really,
have something cool. I mean, we'll talk about it.
that's why I bought the shirt. This will be my memento
Yeah.
Because it has the year on it, so that'll definitely help me remember that I won it in 2019. But yeah, I think the ring I only got because it came free with the order of the trophy.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason. Otherwise, it's like a $60 ring, and
Oh
so
shit! No,
yeah,
I ain't buying. I
yeah,
will buy it when I win next year. Then.
yeah. So the only reason I did it was because I had a promo code that was literally free ring, and so I got it. Um, uh, I just got it when I got the trophy. So yeah, it'll be a
Yeah.
great off season. We're gonna figure out all the kinks in our keeper league, and we're gonna all get together and have a blast again next year. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So
Yeah.
you chodes have a great off season, and I'm looking forward to our
Peace out,
first match
guys.
next year. See you guys. See you guys later.